Hi, I'm Derek Fields. I am the Atlassian Practice Manager for RightStar Systems. RightStar is a platinum partner of Atlassian, specializing in the implementation of Atlassian tools with a special focus on DevOps. And this is the third of 4 videos in which we're going to try and talk about how you can improve your organization's use of DevOps through the use of Atlassian tools. When we talk about DevOps, we talk about people, process, and tools. And it's important to keep in mind that at each step along the way, even though we're going to focus primarily on tools, that people is the most important part of getting DevOps right. You need to have a culture that is DevOps focused, that has transparency, that has collaboration, that has trust and openness, because these are the key elements that the people who are in your DevOps organization are going to bring to bear. You need to have processes that are standardized, that everyone can follow, that will help to implement the goals of your DevOps vision. And of course, you need to have tools. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, in today's presentation, we're going to look at the build phase. But to remind you of the DevOps cycle, let's take a quick look at it. As we see here, we've got the DevOps cycle, the plan, the build, the continuous integration and deployment, operations, and the continuous feedback. As we keep saying, this is critical for us to be able to improve on our performance. Each cycle should be better than the last. Today, we're going to talk about the build portion of the cycle. The build portion is where our developers, our testers, are really getting involved. We want our security and our quality people to be part of our build. And the key elements from Atlassian that are going to allow us to be successful are Jira and Bitbucket. We're going to focus primarily on Bitbucket, but we're going to start by looking at how Jira and Bitbucket integrate to allow us to work together. So let's take a look first of all at Bitbucket, because I want to make sure that you know what that is. Bitbucket is a front end to the Git distributed version control system. Git is an essential component of a successful DevOps organization. A distributed version control system will allow each of your developers and your testers and your deployment personnel to work independently of each other so that they can experiment, they can implement, they can test, and they can even do deployments without having an effect or an impact on the other members of the team. And so this is really critical to being successful with DevOps. We're going to come back and look at this in more detail in a moment, but this is our Git repository that is front-ended by Bitbucket. Now let's take a look at how this integrates with Jira. So if you remember from our last video, we had taken the manager report and said that is the focus of our implementation for today. I have 2 developers who are going to be working on this. I've got Trisha Dev and Sally Developer. These are both working on this issue together, but Trisha Dev is going to take the lead, and I've assigned her to the ticket. So Trisha is going to come into this ticket. She has assigned it, presumably has assigned it to herself by taking it from to do to in progress. And now she's going to start working on this ticket. And to do that, and again, directly in Jira from her sprint board, she's going to kind of come down and say, I'm going to create a branch. And a branch is simply a portion of code that's going to basically copy what's in the master branch. We're going to create a new branch. We're going to say it is a feature branch. And as you can see, Jira has already indicated to Bitbucket its name, which has the Jira ticket number, as well as the name or the summary of that ticket right here in the branch name. So by clicking Create Branch, I am now going to be able to create a new branch in my Git repository specifically for working on this ticket. Any work I do on this branch will have no impact on developers who are working in other branches on other tickets until we merge them together. And that's what we're going to see as we get to the end of this video. So as you can see, I am now in this feature branch. I've got my source and my test directories. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch over to an actual development environment. Now, for this case, we're just going to look directly at our Linux environment. I'm going to go ahead and clear this. In this case, we're looking at the HTML. We're going to have two sections of code that we're working on. Each is going to be worked on independently. We're going to suggest that Sally is working on the manager.html code. This is the HTML code that's going to be able to present our report. We also have REST code, which has been written in Python, and that's where the REST API has been developed. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. The first thing I want to do in my Git environment is I'm going to check out, I'm going to fetch, the first thing I'm going to do in my Git environment is to fetch my existing repository. And what this does is it pulls down that new branch that I've just created. Now notice this is in my local environment. And so what I've done is I've now made a copy of what was in the Bitbucket environment into my own local environment. And as you can see, I've got a new branch. I'm going to go ahead and check out that branch. I'm going to make it easy on myself and just copy and paste it right in. And now what I've done is I've switched to this new branch. And everything that I do will be segregated from the master branch. I am now working in a private area that will have no effect on any other developer. So we're going to go into the HTML code, and we're going to take a look at what it looks like today. So what we want to look at here is some HTML code which we're going to transform. As you can see, what we've been given is very, very basic HTML. And if you don't know HTML, that's quite all right, but I just want to show you that what we've got here is very basic. Now, what we're going to do is to transform this. Sally is coming along and is going to actually add a bunch of different code. But for the sake of time, we're not going to enter all of that in. We're just going to go ahead and copy a file that we've already got, which has all that code, right into where we need it to be. And now we can come in and look at that code base. And we can see that we now have all sorts of different code that we've added to it. So Sally has now been able to work with this code, again, independently in her own environment. She has added to it. She has perhaps tested it in her own environment. She's made sure that it seems to work the way she expects it to work. And now she can go ahead and save that code. And if we look, we can see that this is what's been done. We're not going to take that particular manager.html. Let's go ahead and edit this one more time just to make sure that there is a complete, good change. So we'll go ahead and add this space just so we can add it. And then we're going to say git commit, and we're going to have updated the manager code. Now, up until this point, Sally has done work in her own environment. But now what she wants to do is she wants Tricia, who's working in the REST portion of it, to have access to this particular file. So what she's going to do is she's going to push this back up to Bitbucket. She's going to log in and say it's her, she's the one who's done it, and it's gone ahead and updated Bitbucket. Let's take a quick look at that in our Bitbucket repository. This is in the back-end repository that we've got. And what we're going to see when we look at this is we're going to now see that there is a new commit in this branch. We're going to look at the branch that we've got. We're going to go into the commits, and we should be able to see here that Sally has indeed committed code up to the branch. Okay, so now let's go back to our code base. And we're going to go and switch ourselves over to the REST area. We're going to go ahead and open up our REST file, and what we're going to see here, Tricia is now going back. Remember, we've already have all our requirements here in Confluence, and Tricia can quickly see that we're missing the group section of our test data. So let's go ahead and look at that, and we can go ahead and put that particular piece of information right in here. So we're going to say that this is a 1, and this is a 1, and this is a 2, and this is a 2. And that, save that file, and we'll go ahead and commit this as well. And we added the group information. And then we're going to go ahead and push this back up to our repository. And Tricia's the one who's doing this. And there we go. So now we have committed the code. Sally and Tricia have successfully worked together in order to collaborate on this particular story, and they have been able to do so without having to worry about each other checking different things out, locking files, and so on. They have access to everything, and so we can now come back to Bitbucket, and we can see that everything has been committed as we would have expected in Bitbucket. Now what we're going to say at this point is that this code is ready to be merged into our master branch. We've decided that it seems to be working, at least Tricia and Sally believe it's working, and they're ready for somebody to check it over. So what they do is they come in and they create a pull request for this branch, and what this is going to say is, I'm ready for this branch to be merged into my master. So I'm going to go ahead and say that my feature branch is ready to be merged into my master. It contains 2 commits of work that I've done, and I'm going to go ahead and continue here. It gives me a description. I'm going to say that I want John, the analyst, we're going to have Tricia be a reviewer on this. We're going to go ahead and create the pull request, and what's going to happen now is that Tricia is going to be able to look at the code and determine whether or not it all seems to hang together correctly. So we've got a pull request. We're going to go ahead and look at that. But before we do, let's go back to Jira. What we're going to do is to look at this particular ticket. And we're going to see how Bitbucket has integrated with this ticket to indicate that there is one branch associated with it. And there is one pull request that is now open and ready to be processed. And what this again does, and remember in DevOps, transparency and access to information is critically important. We can quickly see what the status of this particular ticket is. And if I'm a product owner or a Scrum Master, I can see work that is actually being done on this ticket in order to maintain the velocity or the competency, the overall delivery of my organization. So let's go ahead and work on this pull request. We're going to go ahead and look at that. The pull request details, it says John Analyst actually created the pull request. And now we can come in and we can see what exactly may have changed between these files. So you can see here's the changes that were made. We look over this. We do a quick code review to determine whether or not this looks appropriate. We say, yes, this seems to be the right kinds of things. I can see what commits were actually made against it. And now we can go ahead and say, yes, we're going to go ahead and merge this into our master branch. I click on merge, and what happens now is my master branch now reflects exactly what I had, the changes that I've made, and this can then be deployed. Again, we can come back to our Jira ticket, and as you can see, I've now got one branch, a commit, and a pull request which has been merged in. And again, this tells me exactly what has happened with this particular ticket. This is really critical to our DevOps process. Again, because it allows us to have transparency into where we are. And in our cycle, as we're going to talk about in the next video, having done the implementation, we are now ready to build it, to test it, and to deploy it. And those pieces should be extremely fast. And in my highly functioning DevOps organization, This is going to allow me to deploy code from the time I have pulled it and merged it into my branch to deploy it within minutes or even seconds into my UAT environment or my production environment. But that's a topic for our next video. I appreciate you taking the time and watching this with me, and I look forward to seeing you as we actually go ahead, build, test, and deploy this code.